So why did you decide to write this book now?
Well, first and foremost, we were locked down and there was nothing to do. And I was at the time I was having chemo treatment, and I was doing some blogs with Tony Jimenez, and we were back and forth. And he said, you know, what about doing a book? And I said, well, I'm not doing anything else. So we started to sort of reminisce and look for a suitable title. My Ryder Cup Journey seemed the right one. You know, it was Ryder Cup that really got me into golf in 1957, when I was inspired by. It was the first time I'd seen world-class golfers in Northern England, and beyond that, I mean, obviously the Ryder Cup's been a big part of my life, and but it's not all about Ryder Cup. We go off as you do into other areas, and it's a bit like telling jokes. You know, one joke reminds you of another, and you get. Anyway, it turned out we thought pretty well, and it certainly occupied some boring times.
How long did it take to get the stories that you produced for this book down on paper?
Well, we did. I mean, Tony and I did it like we're talking now, and he would go back and write. I suppose 6 months. All told, it was it was difficult in certain part. I mean, from a point of view of pictures, they all had to be. The rules and regulations today were unbelievable. Anyway, I was able to get most of the pictures that we have in there were taken by a good friend, Frank Christian from Augusta, and then Frank was employed by the PGA of America for about 10 years to make albums for all the players, and so we got the pictures through him, and the cover picture is behind me now. That was a gift from the British PGA back in 1990 after my final captaincy, and but they weren't really sure they were going to let me use that, and I said, you know, it's my picture. But it's not that easy, you know. Anyway, Tony had to deal with all of that nonsense, and I wouldn't have had patience for that, but we got it done.
So to have the 7 Ryder Cups in which you were a player and then 4 of them as a captain, what at the time did you feel was more important? And in retrospect, do you feel the same way? Did you feel more important as a player or more important as a captain?
Well, it was different. I mean, it's, you know, time takes care of a lot of situations. I mean, when I was a player, I mean, there was a point, I think, through that period that, well, I mean, the only watershed year was 1969, where we tied. But there's not a lot of, it's not a lot of fun getting your backside kicked every time you go out. And obviously through that period as a player, I mean, around the 69, 70, I was as good as anybody around. And but when you're in the team environment and it's so as one-sided as it was, and plus then we didn't have the formula, the format that we have today. They were, you know, through the 50s and 60s and 70s, they messed around with the, you know, the formula, trying to keep it even. But I suspect America wanted to keep it just enough in their favour to, because they love to win, and there's nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that I recommended very, very strongly when I left the captain's role was that the format should stay as it is, because the fact that you're able to hide 4 players the first 2 days, takes out the strength in depth. I mean, clearly America has, so much strength in depth, but I mean, it sort of takes care of that. You can, it's not always easy, but I mean, during those years as captain, I mean, I relied very heavily on my major champions, and I told them before we got started that they weren't going to get much rest during the. I really lent on them quite heavily, and but that format does encourage close finishes on Sunday, and that's what you want. I mean, unfortunately, the President's Cup, which was actually spawned by the Ryder Cup in '93, they chose to expose more players the first 2 days.
Right.
And on that basis, it's, they've had landslide victories, apart from one, I mean, where the international players won in Melbourne that one time. And then even then, ESPN pulled the plug on it. I sat down to watch it and was relishing, I was rubbing my hands and thinking and they didn't even show the final day. So, numerous captains on the international end of it. Nicky Price comes to mind. I mean, he was trying to get it to where it was the same as the Ryder Cup format, but America's they like winning, and they were reluctant to change. And anyway, we live in hope. We see what happens in the future on that one.
What do you think ultimately was more influential in European success in the Ryder Cup in the modern era? Bringing on continental Europe in '79, or stabilizing the format, like you said, where you could kind of hide some of that maybe lack of depth on some teams?
Well, I think there was a bit of that, but certainly bringing Europe into the fray was significant. Ultimately, not initially. The format has, obviously merit going for it on the basis I've just said, but also, we changed through my playing years. I didn't believe that we were approaching it in a very professional manner. I mean, we were doing it on the cheap, and there was a sort of, I don't know quite how to explain it, but there was a sort of a Britishness about showing up's more important than winning, surely, that kind of thing. And America, they were going first class, and we were on the back of the bus, not knowing who was paying for the drinks, and we were wearing clothes that anybody would give us. And the upshot of it was that we were, from a self-esteem point of view, we were a couple down before we really, teed off. And we didn't have a team room back in those days. I mean, we were left to our own devices in the evenings, for example. You find a local restaurant, go with your wife and maybe another couple. But there was no sort of place where we could gel as a group, and I took care of all that during in the '83 matches, and with the other two ingredients, as we said, Europe and then the format, coupled in with those changes that I made, we went very, very, very close to winning in '83 on American soil. And, we were a glum lot on the final day on the dais when the presentation was being made. But, it was Sevi, who actually said, hey, we shouldn't be so sad. This is the best we've ever done in America. And he was right, but it was still a gut blow. It was hard to bear going within a point. And but like so often happens, we rallied when we got back on the home soil in '85. Took what happened in '83 in a positive way and gave us confidence. And then at the same time we had these great players coming along, major winners: Woosnam, Langer, Alasabel. Adding to the, already Ballesteros, Faldo, Lyle. It was a formidable group, and there was no lack of confidence. And of course, the other players were the non-major winners were feeding off the, success of, and we were in a very positive place. I mean. Lots to prove, and winning, as I said, at the Belfry, it was 28 years, and I'd witnessed that at Lindrick, when I was a 13-year-old boy. And it's worth mentioning Langer, who's having an incredible senior career, but he was 28 years old then. And, I remember him saying, as far as I'm concerned, 28 is a long time. That's as long as I've been here. And so it was pretty historic. But, I think the win on American soil in '87 was probably the tell-all, if you like, the absolute, it was it as far as I was concerned. I mean, we didn't, we cemented the fact that we were not second class anymore. We were up for whatever they could bring to the table.
Did it feel like you in '87, when you had broken through on American soil, did it feel like 20 plus years, nearly 30 years of work had kind of come to culmination? Or I guess, what was the catharsis? What did you see in that moment that brought so much joy? Was it a lifelong's worth of work, or was it your period in the captaincy? I mean, how did you kind of view that success?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of hard work. I mean, getting everything positioned right. We've already covered aspects of it. But leveling the playing field and the self-esteem aspect of things, that was huge, I mean, being able to stand on the tee and feel, well, it's just you and me, and let's go at it. There was none of this feeling of inferiority. And it took a long time to eliminate that feeling of inferiority. Addressing all the issues. Regardless of what you do, it's not going to happen overnight. You've got to just, you've got to be sure that you're on the right track, and you've got to keep nibbling away, and it's been fascinating. That's why, I've seen it all. I'm 77 years old now, so I've seen a lot of the history of the matches. I've been thrown in at the deep end. I was a player in '67 when Ben Hogan was the captain of the American side, and I've witnessed America's superiority. When the captain could say, "These are the greatest players in the world," and sort of get away with it. So I've seen a lot, and you know, much of the success that we enjoyed, it was about timing and being in the right place at the right time. I mean, certainly, I mean, if I hadn't been teed off, you know, I got left out of the team in '81. Seve was not in the team in '81, and he was arguably the best player in the world. And then when they came and asked me to be captain just 6 months before the matches in '83, yeah, I had no captain's picks. It was too late for that. The tour had already started for that year. So I had to take the top 12 money winners. And but when they asked me, I was so, as I say, teed off with the attitude they had, and just you know, leaving Seve out, picking Mark James ahead of me. It's all in the book, despite him behaving like a buffoon in '79. None of that seemed to matter to them, and on that basis, I'd done with them. You know, as far as I was concerned, I thought they were a shower, and I didn't want any more to do with it or them. So you could have knocked me down with a feather when I was approached to be. And I wasn't able to answer straight away. I slept on it and met them the next day. And it was because I didn't care whether I did it or not, that I was able to make the demands I made. You know, I wanted Concord, I wanted Savile Row suits, I wanted cashmere, I wanted the team room, I wanted all these different things. And they kept saying, okay. So I said, well, you know, if you're going to give me all that, then I'll do it. And then the main job became getting Seve back into the fold, because he was as mad as I was, you know. And that was my first real job as captain, bringing him back in. And he vented, and he was hurt, you know, by what had happened. And we had an hour breakfast in the Prince of Wales Hotel in Southport. And anyway, at the end of it all, I said, Seve, I've accepted the captain's job and I can't do it without you. I need you on board. I said, you need to just put all of this stuff behind you, and like I have, and we'll get on with it. And I think we can make it work. And of course, it all happened beyond that.
How much do you think the captain's role kind of got more formalized? How much did it change from when you first did it to the fourth time that you did it?
Not much, because once I established the changes in '83, as any golfer would, after that, I looked closely at what the things we'd done, like you would if you're playing tournament golf. You say, is it my driving? Is it my putting? Is it my iron play that needs to improve? And I was pretty sure that everything was well received, you know, with the player room and everything. It was all. So we soldiered on in '85, and that, you know, sort of more or less proved that. And you know, I had Bernard Gallagher. I didn't have him the first year, but Bernard, who was a very close friend and still is today, he was sat with me in my cart, and he was helping me any which way he could with things. And it was pretty much the same for all four of my captaincies. Now then, I handed over to Bernard because there was no obvious successor, I suppose. But Bernard certainly knew, you know, what the form was and what my feelings and so on were. And so he inherited the captain's role. And then, I don't know, somewhere in the 90s, we started getting vice captains coming on stream. Christ, I don't know how many people are involved now. I mean, it's, you know, and when we you know, I was very much adamant that the team room, for example, was for the team, players and wives, spouses, girlfriends. And that was it. No officials, no, I mean, I remember vividly the first time we had the team room, one of the PJ officials came in looking at the smorgasbord for breakfast and he's rubbing his hands. And I said to one of the guys, tell him that there's breakfast for him in another part of the hotel, not in here. You know, this is for us. But and I suspect all those things have got watered down now, and caddies, I'm sure, go in there, and God knows who else. But and we certainly did. You know, I didn't have to deal with these sort of other opinions from the vice captains and that sort of thing. So it's all gone. You know, as things do, nothing stays the same. It's a different animal altogether now. But and I'm not sure it's all you know, better. I'm not sure it's better for having all these, you know, different opinions in there. It's nice to involve them because they're passionate about golf, and it's clear that not only that, but the players and the public. I mean, before we got, you know, winning this thing in the mid '80s, I don't think there were any. I don't think many of us were passionate about team. You know, I mean, golf is a solitary pursuit at the end of the day. You know, I mean, you can go out there on your own and you can play 2 balls. You can, you know, spend time on your own, improving your game. It's just, in so many ways, it is a solitary pursuit. But all of a sudden, when we gelled as a team and we started pulling for each other for that week, and we saw we could beat the might of America, something happened, you know, something happened. And you get guys now that say, well, yeah, I won the Open, but God, I love that Ryder. I want to be on that Ryder Cup team. You know, it's an experience that you never encountered when you were as a player. You know, the pressure, the passion, the pressure of representing your fellow professionals and your tour goes way beyond representing yourself. And you know, I mean, I've won a couple of majors and I've certainly lost 1 or 2 as well. And at the end of the day, it's just you. You've got to take it on the chin and move on. But in a team arena, you know, going back to 1969, I suppose that was the first real feeling I had for it, because when we were on the last hole, Nicholas and I, you know, and all your teammates are around the green and they're just waiting for your result to determine what's what. That's pressure, you know. I mean, I remember Jack saying to me, you know, are you nervous? I said, Jack, I'm bloody petrified. I mean, it was, and he said, I'm just asking because if it's any consolation, I feel the same way as you do. You know, and that was probably the first time I'd felt like that. You know, that kind of pressure it was beyond me. You know, I was just I was representing myself, sure, but I was also representing my captain, my tour, my team, my country, all of those things came into the equation that time. And then that went away because we started getting our backside kicked again. And, you know, there's not much fun in that, turning up knowing that, actually knowing that you're going to get beat before it starts because of the strength in depth. I mean, Weiskopf in 77, Lytham, never turned up, and he was part of the American team, but he knew, you know, Tom was a dear friend of mine and still is. He's been battling cancer this last 8-9 months, but you know, he went off shooting instead because he knew it was a foregone conclusion. So that 69 experience that, you know, I'd had with Jack was something that started to be a biannual event in the 80s when we started to, when we leveled the playing field and were able to taste victory. And I think, in fairness, it took America longer to feel the same way we did. But I've got no doubt now that the passion that they encounter during the Ryder Cup is something. I mean, I've talked to Crenshaw about it and numerous other American friends, and it's something that I didn't know about when I was a young man doing my individual winning. You know, it was it's something, and then of course, and then you've got, you know, the success of it, you know, spawned the Solheim Cup for the girls, and the President's Cup, because Gary and Greg Norman, all these guys wanted similar experience. You know, they saw what we were going through emotionally, and that sort of, they wanted a piece of it, and they got it, and you know, the world's a better place for it. I mean, I think, you know, when you've been on a couple of those teams, you know, you make friendships and relationships that difficult to explain. You know, I'm not saying it's the same as, I wouldn't go as far as it's like being in the trenches in a war, but I mean, you are in a place with 11 other guys and a captain that that is very unusual.
Last question: why do you think that the intensity, that the emotion behind the Ryder Cup is still as strong as it is, even in a world where so many European players come and play the PGA Tour? They're often American based. They see a lot of their opposition in the Ryder Cup on a weekly basis. Why do you think that the European team still maintains such a strong intensity about representing Europe, being a part of the team, and then those 3 days where, like you said, it's an incredibly emotional, stressful experience?
Well, I think, you know, going back to that first European match in 79, for example, I think there were only 2 Europeans on the team. I can't remember, but I know Seve and Garrido, I think it was, Antonio, 2 Spanish. Subsequent to that, there's been 14 different European nations involved in matches. I think this year made it 14 with Victor Hovland, and there was another one. Anyway, you look across the board at those European individuals, they come from backgrounds that are anything. I mean, Henrik Stenson comes to mind, Sweden, you know, I mean, God, when he was starting playing golf in Sweden, I mean, it snowed for 6 or 7 months. You know, his whole background, I think nearly every European that came onto the team wanted to part of proving that just because America has everything, they don't have a monopoly on winning. And it's an opportunity to show that. I don't know whether that makes any sense or not, but it did to me, and it did to Sevi. You know, I mean, we both won in America, and you know, there was a satisfaction in that was beyond winning on home ground. You know, I mean, and I think all these other players have experienced or want to be part of proving that. It's a sort of vein that runs through the European teams. They want to be part of a team that can show, you know, I mean, I say the greatest country in the world, but I mean, we all looked up to America as having it all. You know, the money, the best weather, the courses, you know, and where we were coming from was a lesser place. Now, I know a lot of them, you know, a lot of Europeans have enjoyed the, you know, education system over here, the golf scholarships and various, you know, so from that point, but still, it's your early life that you draw on when you start achieving greatness at any level. You inevitably look back at the beginnings of your life and said, God, who would have thought it? You know, I mean, I remember saying when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, this is a very long way from Scunthorpe, and it was. And I think it's the same for so many of these European guys. When they compare themselves to the American guys, the Americans have far more starting out by and large.
It makes a ton of sense. It does, absolutely. I know you're. Yes, if I understood, that completely makes sense to me. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you got a lot of things to do in your day, but thank you for taking a half hour to talk to me. And I feel like I could have talked to you for days about this, but I know you don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be trying to play golf this afternoon with a bunch of pals out here. I live on a little Donald Ross golf course, and we're going to play a bit later. I've got one more of these things to do first, but it's a pleasure talking to you. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jacklin. Take care.